Hello, everyone. Welcome to Café New Canadians, a virtual event series. Today's session of Café New Canadians is brought to you by New Canadians in collaboration with bridging programs at MNLCT, Mennonite New Life Center. You can check out their website, which is bridgingprograms.org, and find out about the two bridging programs that they offer. New Canadians, as you know, is a TV and web-based show. You can watch us on Omni TV, wherein we showcase our weekly episodes. And at the same time, you can watch us on YouTube at youtube.com/New Canadians. You can also check out our website for all the content that we put out for you. I'm your host, Shruti Dargan, and I'll be hosting today's session. Today, we will be talking about how is it that bridging programs can take newcomers a step closer to their professional success. We will be joined by a few speakers today. We have 4 panelists with us. We've got Daniel Wong, who is a career developer at MNLCT. We've got Sheila Mulhern, who is an educational and placement counselor at MNLCT. At the same time, we're joined by Beauty Kumar and Luciana Pache de Faria, who are both participants of previous bridging programs offered by the center. Beauty was a part of the Bridge to Employment in Media and Communications, and Luciana was a part of Bridge to Registration and Employment in Mental Health. At this point, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. And before we begin, I'd like to just remind the viewers that you can post your questions to us. You can keep asking these questions to us using the Q&A tab on Zoom. We're also live streaming this webinar on YouTube, and you can check us out there as well. You can post the questions there, and we'll make sure that as and when possible, we'll keep asking these questions to our panelists and get you all the answers that you want. So welcome everyone again. And let's start with how's everyone doing?
I'm good, thank you.
So how are you all holding up at home during these times of coronavirus when everyone's got to be at home to stay safe, of course? And how's everyone holding up?
Yeah, doing great. And, just adjusting to the new world now. Everything we have adjusted, starting from your early morning walks to evening walks, just adjusting. And now it's a good feeling now.
Sure.
Yeah.
So welcome again. We will now start talking about bridging programs. Now, of course, bridging programs are a step in a newcomer's world in Canada over here, which can elevate them in that path towards professional success over here. Oftentimes, newcomers face challenges, especially internationally trained professionals or internationally educated professionals. They might come to Canada with a lot of experience, a wealth of experience, years. And at the same time, they deserve to be in the job market as soon as possible. But at the same time, there are a few challenges that they might face. So we'll begin with you, Daniel. If you could just tell us that in your experience with so many newcomers who've been part of the bridging programs that you offer, what are the typical challenges that internationally trained professionals face?
There's certainly a few key ones. I think it's common across the board. The lack of professional network, moving into a new country. Some people have family and friends and some don't, but most people don't know anyone in their professional space. And of course, the very popular one, the lack of Canadian experience. It's really about the lack of Canadian credibility, which is the work experience and training. And most people don't have a knowledge of their industry, the landscape in the industry, the local landscape in Toronto and the GTA. We find that most people don't know how to introduce themselves in their industry. So we call it branding or rebranding yourself for the industry that they live in here right now. And that's a very important thing that we help our participants to do, to understand what their brand is, which is their expertise and specialty, and how to market that in the workplace, in industry.
Thank you. And Sheila, could you, for our viewers, first define what exactly is a bridging program? what is it that one can understand when they read bridging program to different courses that are offered across provinces across Canada?
Mhm. So bridging programs are specifically designed programs for internationally trained professionals, but by profession. So no bridging program is exactly alike. So it's everything from IT, finance, accounting. Today, we're specifically speaking about mental health and media and communications, which are the two bridging programs offered by Mennonite New Life Center. But there's a huge gamut of bridging programs. But what they all have in common is that when you graduate, they want you to find meaningful, and that's a key word, meaningful employment in your field. That's the goal, just to bridge the gaps, not to retrain you to learn all this new knowledge that you knew nothing about. You're coming with knowledge and experience, and bridging programs value that knowledge. And I think that's what sets bridging programs apart from your mainstream educational programs that are offered in a Canadian landscape. So they're designed for you and your background, and for highly educated professionals who come with a wealth of knowledge. And we need that knowledge in the bridging program. In fact, a bridging program won't be successful if you don't bring your knowledge and your experience, because it's a dynamic program that values discussion and debate and your knowledge and experience. So that's really sort of what sets it apart from other programs. And there's a huge gamut of bridging programs. I'm not an expert on all of them. I'm sort of an expert on the mental health one, but certainly it would take a quick Google search to see if there's a bridging program in Ontario or anywhere in Canada that matches your profession and that you want to stick with and you want to maintain your career once you've immigrated.
Thank you. So you actually mentioned that you told us how exactly a bridging program is also different from a university course or a short-term certificate program, which is offered by other universities. Now, as the way I understand, there's another key component of bridging programs, which is the placements or the internship possibilities that are there as part of it, which give the participants a chance to gain some local experience. And at the same time, these programs are not intimidating because it's a few days or a few months or a few weeks of commitment, a few hours every day, and at the same time allowing one to pursue maybe a part-time job at the same time. Would you want to maybe expand a little on this and tell us how is it that bridging programs can help one upskill, move forward in this journey, and at the same time it allows them to continue with other earning possibilities when someone's new here? Daniel or Sheila, anyone who'd like to take this?
Well, I think what I'll start with, I guess, a differentiation between what a bridging program is and what a post-secondary college or university program. I think most people come here and when they don't have a job, they're like, well, I guess I have to get some Canadian credentials. The fastest thing to do before I get a job is to go back to school. A lot of people actually go back to a college or university and actually end up learning exactly what they already know, which is a waste of time and a waste of money. And no one has time to waste any of those things as well. So I think the biggest differentiators between the two programs, would be a post-secondary program really focuses on developing the hard skills instead of really developing the soft skills. And the newcomers, one of the things that they will be focusing on is developing soft skills that really help them to adapt to the local, the local market, and to make them kind of less foreign and help them to assimilate and help them to actually create the perception that they're more like really everybody else than different. I think the fish out of water mentality is really the biggest struggle that most newcomers have. Going back to a post-secondary program, these are things that you won't learn in post-secondary. They're not going to help you develop your soft skills. They just want to teach you the hard skills, and most people already know that. Secondly, a bridging program, the image of bridge is exactly what it is. It is really to fill those gaps required to find employment. Those gaps include industry knowledge and networking skills and how to brand yourself. And these are the things that you're not going to learn in a college or university program. The program that we deliver, we make sure that our team we're culturally sensitive to helping those learn, newcomers learn, and who lack familiarity with the local environment and the culture.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that our students find comfort in is that they feel comfortable asking questions. They feel asking questions about employment and industries related questions. And usually there's no opportunity to learn that in a college or university class where you're one of maybe dozens or sometimes 100 students. There's really no opportunity to do that. So I think that's one of the biggest differentiators between the different types of programs, bridging and post-secondary. In terms of the work placements, we see it as a really giving participants a foot in the door. And sometimes they continue, if there's opportunity in the placement employer to continue on. Otherwise, it's really a foot in the door where you get a good reference, and it really helps you to find your next employment.
Thank you.
Can I add something?
Please, please.
Yeah. As a former student of BRAM, of Bridging Training Program for Mental Health Professionals, for me, there is a huge difference between attending a bridging program and going back to college or even getting a degree in university. I think like many of us, I did consider the possibility of going back to university, and I am so glad that I made the decision to attend the bridge because when I was there, I was actually relating to people that was going exactly through the same. We were struggling. We were basically starting our careers from the scratch. We had to deal with language barriers, the lack of network, and so the bridge, it almost became like my family in Canada. And I think that the people that from my cohort also like very knowledgeable and experienced professionals coming from all over the world. We were there like supporting each other. We knew what we were lacking on, and they became my friends, my professional network. And more than that, I think the teachers, they are also trained to help you filling up the gaps, right? Bridging the gaps as we were talking about. So it's not an ordinary program. I think it gives exactly what a newcomer needs, and you don't find it anywhere else. So I'm very glad that that was my choice, and I don't think I would have achieved what I did without the Bridge program.
Thank you, Luciana. You've actually touched upon another key component of a bridging program, which is how it ends up giving the participants a sense of community, friends, family soon after. And a lot of people end up joining programs when they're a few months into the country, still figuring out. They've heard so far a lot about how it's important to network, but they still don't know how to start and where to start from. This brings me to you, Beauty, because before we started this webinar, we got talking, and you shared with me that how you were barely a few weeks into this country when you started the bridging program. So could you share a little about how it helped you, and at what point in life were you when this bridging program came about?
So before landing to Canada, I heard about this bridging program from my husband because he was already there here in Canada. So he told me, why don't you check that? And the moment I checked it, and then I landed here, and then how I ended up, doing this bridging program. Very rightly, Luciana just mentioned all the, points which I was about to mention. Yes, of course, the first step in this bridging program has given me 20 contacts, 20 people. That was my first network in Canada. They are my friends now. They are my family. I mean, that's the best part, which a newcomer can imagine while coming to a new country. not only those 20 people, the instructors, the administration staff from the campus. So yeah, I mean that actually you need when you are landing up in a new country. You don't have your family, friends. These are the people who support you during in your happy days or maybe in your struggling days. So that's the best part. Apart from that, definitely bridging program has given me to build up my professional network, and also how I can enter into my industry, knowing the industry people, knowing the industry. So these are the factors which has actually really quite helped me.
Yeah. Thank you. And to you, both of you now, Beauty and Luciana, you've both been part of separate bridging programs offered by MNLCT. Uh, and Luciana, you've been employed for more than 2 years now. You're practicing in your field. So, how do you think it prepared you for the job market ahead, or actually the work ahead? Uh, was it a stepping stone for you? And how is it that it actually, the bridging program that you were a part of, it prepared you for that future work journey?
Want to go first or do I go?
It's okay, you can go first. No problem.
Yeah, so I am now a registered psychotherapist here in Ontario, and I work as a full-time at Abrigo Center. And just to give a little bit of information about my work, Abrigo is a not-for-profit and multi-service agency that was created 30 years ago here in Toronto. And Abrigo has grown from an agency helping women who have experienced abuse to one that helps everybody in the community, from youth to seniors. And I mostly work as a counselor with women who were a victim of domestic violence. And I can't imagine being the place that I am now without the help that I had from the bridge training. And I think there's so many examples that I can share. For example, as soon as you move to Canada, there's things that are so silly, but you have no clue, right? So for example, your resume might look weird to the Canadian context, right? So you keep sending your resumes and nobody calls you back. Or even you need some, how do I say, some courses or some certificates here in Canada that you were not aware about. Or as we were talking, you don't have Canadian experience, you don't have professional references. So what the bridge training gave to me was one, the chance of building my network, professional network, a space also to improve my professional language, because even if you are fluent or competent in English, it doesn't mean that you have worked before, like immersed in an English workplace. So you might lack the professional vocabulary. And the bridge had a very important role in helping me to improve my language and also my confidence. The placement also gives you the famous Canadian experience. And I remember that when I applied for my job at Abrigo, my professional reference were actually the manager from the bridge training, Nava, Israel, and my supervisor from my placement. So they were the ones that could say something about me, about my soft skills, my hard skills, and they were the ones that helped me to find my first job. So yeah, even when I think about being helped for a job interview, what do you do or how you behave? We also have here in Toronto all the cultural, different cultural backgrounds. So something that might be okay in your home country might not be here, right? Might not be professional. So there's so much that I think that the bridge helped me to be where I am right now.
So
Thank you for sharing your experience. Beauty, what about you?
yeah. So I mean, whatever Luciana said is perfectly right. For me, I come from media background and especially from the advertising industry. I worked more than 10 years in India before. And while coming to Canada, I was only thinking that I don't know about the media, Canadian media industry, how it works, how it, what are the big companies are there. Yes, of course, you can search a little bit on internet, but if you want to know more detail about the company's work culture, all those things were quite new for me. So once I gone through the entire program, I came to know that okay, so these are the things which I need to uh, I need to focus more. And then suddenly, I mean, not suddenly actually, MNLCT helped me quite a lot getting my internship. So currently, I'm working with a big media agency here in Canada. And when I joined that company and the work culture that I have, seen, yes, a lot of things I have learned from my bridging program, that how Canadian culture, Canadian work culture, how people behave in offices here in Canada. So those are a few different, a little things which were not there in India before. Though the hard skills, whatever you have, yes, that is still the same because all the algorithms, all the planning happens like that, but not the soft skills. So that brush up, I can say that yes, that helped me quite a lot. That brush up those soft skills here with the bridging program.
Yeah. You,
May I add something?
yes,
Sorry.
please.
In my case, there's also a very challenging process that would be to become registered with a regulatory body.
I was just
Right?
about to come to that.
Yes. So as a psychotherapist, I'm sorry to say that, but sometimes the regulatory bodies, they are not that friendly. And it's not an easy path and not a short path to become a registered professional in Canada. And we do know that to find a meaningful job and to be able to perform in your career, the registration plays a very important role. So I'm also glad for all the help that I had with the brand. For example, in my case, we needed, if I'm not wrong, 700 hours of Canadian experience in the psychotherapy field. And it's very tricky because if you are not a registered professional and if you don't have the license to perform in your profession, how can you get the 700 hours to become a registered professional and submit your application to the college? So the placement and all the training hours that we had in our bridge training program, they were actually considered as Canadian hours. So so I got the hours and I think I became a registered psychotherapist because I had all the support from the bridge.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us. While we're discussing internships and placements, it's a good time to take some audience questions related to that as well. Barb Hogan is asking us that, can you tell us a bit more about how the placements or internships are set up? I'm guessing this is a question that can be better answered by Daniel and Sheila here. So who'd like to take it?
I can start and maybe Daniel, you can add on. It's might be a little bit different in all bridging programs, but part of my responsibility as a placement coordinator is helping students apply for placement. So you still have to apply. It's very much mimics job search. So it's like you actually sometimes are in competition with some of your other students in the program, but you've got guidance and coaching all along every step of the way, and certainly contacts. Daniel and I work really hard, and any career counselor in a bridging program will work with you to develop contacts and networks and to develop postings. So that's part of our responsibility, is we develop placements. Sometimes students who are quite active and excellent at networking will also take that role on and find their own placements, and that's wonderful as well. And we're there guiding in the background, maybe reading emails ahead of time and practicing and role playing and kind of encouraging in the background, but they do independently find placements themselves. So it's I would say 50-50. I support students in finding placements. through resume writing, cover letter writing, and then practicing their interview skills. And sometimes students will go for multiple interviews before the appropriate placement is actually found. Some placement interviews are treated exactly like job interviews, which are my favorite ones because it's preparing you for the real world, right? So they'll do a very serious formal job interview just as they would in the real world. They'll call for references. And it's really just so incredibly helpful to the participant to go through that experience, because oftentimes it's their first interview in Canada ever. So it can be really a scary experience, but they've got a lot of support. All bridging programs are connected with some kind of career or employment specialist that can guide them through the whole process. So placements, I just want to add, are such a precious component of bridging programs. And I want to be clear that the placements in our programs are not job shadowing. They're not short. They're actually the most important component of the program, and they're precious, and you do real work. As an intern, at least for our programs, it's required that they're treated like staff. You would go to staff meetings. You're engaged in the day-to-day activities of the workplace. So then when it goes on your resume, it is real work experience that you can speak to. And it can take up about a half a page or even 3/4 of a page of your resume once you're completed a 4 to 6 month placement. So they are a critical component to almost all bridging programs have a work placement as part of their program.
Yeah, my approach and my expectations are identical to Sheila's. I am very collaborative with my participants. I sit down with them. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching that Sheila does as well. I sit down and ask, what's your wish list? What's your industry's wish list, or what's your company wish list? And some people are very, very generic because they don't know the industry very well. They don't know companies, but they know what types of industries and organizations they want to work for, whether it's profit or nonprofit, government, non-government. And then they give me a wish list of like 5 names, and they highlight it and have stars and everything. And that's their big wish list, right? And I try my best to contact them or their competitors as well. And it's a real activity where we really explore, right? And I always encourage people to come with a really open mind, know what you want, but always kind of leave that wiggle room to explore, because this is a space in the bridging program where you can explore and ask questions. There's no wrong questions, right? And it's a time to explore, and sometimes you might, make a mistake, but that's okay. No one's going to judge you here, right? It's a very open, non-judgmental way that we approach things. And I take their wish list and I take what they're looking for, and I do a lot of cold calls. I build relationships with a lot of organizations. I get a lot of references from one organization to refer me to another one, and my list keeps on growing. And throughout the 6 months, I work in collaboration with my students. I listen. I do a lot of listening to what they want to do, and people are allowed to change their minds. From the first month to the 4th month, a lot of people do change their minds in terms of their choices and preferences, right? And that's one of the best things I enjoy about my process, and what I do is the exploration part. I really feel like I'm standing shoulder to shoulder with my participants, and it's never the same. And it's just, it's a really interesting process. And I think people learn a lot about themselves throughout this process. And obviously I'm learning a lot about participants as well. I think one of the benefits I feel like I could bring to the table, and Sheila too, I'm sure, is we really understand who each individual is, and we're able to endorse them on an individual basis to opportunities. And that I find is very, very effective. When someone introduces you as someone who has expertise, someone who has good skills, someone who may be a good fit for your organization, if I'm the employer, I'm listening. I'm like, I receive like hundreds of resumes every day, but if someone says, I know one person for this job, I'll pay attention. I'm gonna listen. I'll take that resume because it saves me a lot of time. So what Sheila and I do it's very tailored, like to the employer and to the participant as well. And I think the endorsement to employers have opened a lot of doors for people very quickly, versus if they were gonna do it themselves. Sheila and I also work for an organization that's very established, and And having kind of like someone endorse you from an organization is a lot more effective, I think, than if you were to do it yourself. Not to say that you can do it yourself, but and I think Sheila also has seen a lot of success where we were able to kind of shortcut the process this way.
Yeah. So recommendations, of course, like you mentioned, play a huge role in catapulting someone to this success. Beauty, would you want to talk about how when you were placed with this media agency that you talked about, how did this recommendation help you?
So recommendation does play a very important part. Definitely when somebody is recommending you, it means he already knows about your soft skills and hard skills. So definitely when before going for an interview, you already scored +5, you know. So that's the kind of advantage that you have when somebody is actually recommending you. So when I was actually going for this interview, before that, Daniel has already sent my resume to the company, and those people are already aware that, from where I come from, what is my background, and all those things. So it was kind of a then a formal interview. I mean, without checking all those things again. So it was actually very important. It played very important role while going for an interview, or maybe going for a internship interview or a job interview. Definitely it's a very major part. It's very important. And in fact, after doing internship also, when you build your network and you have those professional contacts, and then probably you are actually going to the industry for a full-time job, people again recommend you based on your previous experiences and your behavior, your performances. As Sheila has rightly mentioned, that yes, bridging program placements are not like overshadowing or something to somebody. It's actually, you are actually working like a full-time staff, so you have that time where you can actually prove yourself at the company, that yes, you are also an international working professional, you know all these things, and you perform, you can actually show your skills there practically. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Luciana, is there anything you'd like to add to that? I think you're on mute.
I apologize for
No
that.
problem.
I had a very meaningful experience, I can say, because not that long ago, I was a student at the Bridge Training Program, and last year, working as a counselor, I became the supervisor of a student from the BRAM. So for me, it was a very nice way of uh, um, also giving it back. And I had a student that was going through the same process, and now she also graduated, and now she is employed. And I could also be a professional reference for her job interview. So it was very rewarding for me, to be also in a different role right now. Yes.
Thank you. At this point, let's take a few more audience questions. We're getting quite a few, and while we answer some, others too can keep sending us your questions through the Q&A tab on Zoom, or you could send us to us on YouTube, because we're also live streaming this there. We'll take another question. This is maybe Daniel, you'd like to answer this. Do some of the placements lead to permanent positions? Now, we talked about how there are placements, there are internships, local experiences gained, but what are the chances of it materializing into a permanent position?
Well, the BEMC program, we never guarantee that anyone's going to hire you full time. So first and foremost, we ask our participants to really focus on the opportunity. That my responsibility is to place you in an organization doing work that is commensurate to your skills, or as closely as possible commensurate to your skills, leaving wiggle room for you to learn, obviously. Soft skills and cultural adaptation, but also new skills as well. And I always encourage my participants, when you go for an interview, besides talking about what you've done and your expertise, talk about what you want to get out of it. talk about the learning component, right? Because that is essentially the focus of the placement. It's not exactly, it's no, definitely not exactly the same as a regular job, right? Where there's less focus on learning. So that is really the focus of the placement. Now, I've seen a variety of different placement experiences and outcomes. The majority of our placements are 3 months, which is the term that we negotiate with employers. I've seen some people work term get extended because of budget, because the student actually was just a really good fit, and there's some right opportunity at the right time. And even though people who finish the placement may not get extended, I've seen it really open doors for them to get the next job. And that is really the most, I guess, one of the biggest outcomes, the most effective, the best value coming out of a successful placement that will open doors for you. You get the job reference, you get the Canadian job reference that you really, really need to open doors for you. And hopefully within the 3 months of the placement that you network like crazy within the organization and even within the industry. It could be with your clients, it could be with additional partners of your organization. And I've seen that really continue to open doors for participants.
Yeah. And what I gather from what you just said and what we've been discussing so far, even if there is no guarantee of, say, a permanent position later or a full-time employment, there's so much that has still happened, which kind of still increases your chances of it, right? Because one could be trying to apply to all of these other positions on their own. And here, through a bridging program, you have a network of individuals within that same space, within the industry. You have instructors and possibly career developers who can recommend you. So, you have some local experience within. And these are exactly all those things which are really required. This is what employers and companies look for in potential candidates, right? So let's come back to Canadian experience. Now, Luciana, you mentioned that, it worked in your favor because your association with this bridging program, the license, the registrations, all helped. And eventually the work that you got as part of it as well was qualified as Canadian experience. Maybe all of you, I'll start with maybe Sheila here. From your experience, but interacting with the different participants of the programs, would you want to share some anecdotes, positive or negative, vis-a-vis Canadian experience, how things worked out in the past?
So, I mean, the lack of Canadian experience is real, and it being a barrier is real. Even though it's illegal for it to occur, it occurs, and we have to live within reality. I think it's interesting, a lot of hiring managers, and maybe it's a Canadian quality, they're risk adverse. So they're more comfortable if they can call an employer and recognize an agency on the resume and say, oh, I can call and talk to that manager and I can find out what were they like? What's their personality like? Are they going to fit in here? And so there's just that comfort level, even though it's unfortunate because a lot of people's other experience isn't immediately getting recognized, but this is just the reality that we live in. And I think it has a really negative effect on newcomers because they try so hard, even no matter how success driven you are and how many resumes you send out, when you don't get calls back, it can really crush your self-esteem and you can really experience low self-efficacy. And I think that Daniel and I, and certainly Beauty and Luciana can speak to this, but a lot of our participants, when they start the program, they come with a lot of that weight of feeling a lack of success and feeling like there's been a lot of failure at this point and they're in a really adverse environment. So part of what I love about bridging is it's small. And so we can build up that comfort and we can build up strength within participants. And slowly but surely that Canadian experience issue, that barrier will also get solved through the internship. But I think more critically important is that we build up their strength through a strength-based client-centered approach where, Daniel and I, when we're working with participants, we don't talk about what's missing. Like, okay, like lack of Canadian experience. Yes, it's real. But let's talk about your strengths, your resiliency, and all the great qualities that you come with and your knowledge and your experiences through I mean, it's amazing. We would do a lot of work one-on-one, which is really a privilege to be able to do that. So it's not necessarily just a teacher in a classroom teaching. I get to do a lot of one-on-one work. And sometimes just asking really open-ended questions like, you know, what do you do in your spare time? What are you good at? Like, what have you accomplished? Could you tell me a little bit more about that? Like these sort of probing questions. And then I listen, do a lot of listening, like Daniel said earlier, and then I reflect it back. And it's incredible how that strength in participants slowly starts to build up before the internship even happens, you know? So I kind of went on a bit of a tangent there about that, but I think that it's such a critical piece of bridging and why I love bridging so much. And I see a lot of successful graduates come out of bridging. And we do see graduates get hired out of placement. It does happen. Of course, it's not a guarantee. Luck and timing is part of job search experiences, but it absolutely does happen because organizations don't want to lose the wonderful participant that they just got anywhere from 4 to 6 months of work out of, and they can't picture not having them there. So sometimes they will do whatever they can to keep that participant in the organization.
Definitely. Anything that Daniel, Beauty, Luciana, you'd like to add to that before we move on?
Yes, I'm just thinking also how important was while I was in placement. We had at that time clinical supervision and placement supervision. So while we were just like taking our first steps in the Canadian workplace, it was very important to me to have this assistance and guidance and a place where we could just share our struggling and even our doubts or questions, as Daniel said, like in a non-judgmental environment. So it's not about just having a placement. I think what the bridge offers is the placement and the guidance and support while you are there. So I think it was very meaningful.
So bridging programs, I mean, going back to the first few things that we discussed, there's an audience question here from Sweta Siddharthan, who's asking, how is it that so what's the right way to select a bridging program as many organizations provide it? We've got a ton of bridging programs that are offered across Canada in the different provinces. So how can one go about figuring out which is that bridging program that works for them?
So I'll start, and Daniel, maybe you can add on. It's really critical when you're making these decisions to do research and to make an informed decision. So that is true. There is a lot of bridging programs. They are not all created equally. You have to do research and ask really good questions. So most bridging programs, they'll have information, of course, online, which is a great starting point. They'll have flyers and websites and testimonials from graduates, which is an excellent resource because I know our participants love to hear from alumni. I could say all day long, oh, don't worry, you know, you're going to do well, you're going to be successful. I bring in a guest speaker who's an alumni and then they believe them, right? And that's who they want to hear from. So those voices are very important. So usually most bridging programs will give you some kind of access to alumni to ask good questions. That's really, really important. And then you have to analyze your personal readiness. And are you able to make the sacrifice that you need to make to take that bridging program in terms of length and time, finances? Are you ready to make that commitment? Because it is a commitment. Not all bridging programs are super short. Some are a little bit longer because they need to be, because there's more content. Most bridging programs also offer information sessions, which we offer them a few times a month. They're very detailed. They're about 2 hours long. They're online. You get opportunity to ask lots of questions. So that's my advice. Ask questions, questions, questions. There's no stupid questions. We will answer anything. And we would rather you ask questions and really take a critical eye at our program before taking it, rather than just jump in without thinking about it very deeply. We would prefer that. I think all bridging programs would say that. We want you to be successful and be in the right place.
Yeah, just to quickly add to what Sheila said. So most of our participants, they come in having already connected with someone who's done the program and asked about feedback and their experience. So go to LinkedIn, check who's finished the program or you're doing the program currently, and talk to them. That's really the best way. It's the most pragmatic way to find out if it's right for you by asking other people about their experience as well. And in terms of, we know newcomers, they have a lot going on. So upgrading their skills in the bridging program is one of the things, but we understand housing, immigration. Some of them have part-time jobs, or maybe they're still doing some jobs from overseas, right? And bridging is a very condensed program, and commitment to to attending is really important. And while we do have a schedule, we are able to make accommodations if we know what the accommodations are that are required. So as Sheila said, ask questions during the interview process. Like when we screen applicants, but we also are screened by applicants as well, right? But so ask those questions if you have specific schedules, childcare needs, or other part-time jobs. Don't be shy. Talk about what your schedule and your lifestyle is like, and see if this is the right program for you, and see if the program can make accommodations for your schedule to see if it makes sense for you.
Thank you. I think these are wonderful tips that you've shared. Where and how is it that one can figure out what bridging program works for them, and be sure that that actually will help them in their professional journey. So a few questions that audience is asking us. We still have some time, so we could take a few questions. Are most bridging programs paid? And is there a way, because when someone is new in a country, they're trying different avenues of how is it that they can get a job, what are these different paths that they're trying to take, and is there a reimbursement process which is related to mostly all bridging programs, or is that only for some?
I work with a variety of organizations, and it really depends on the organization and their budget, and they're also policy with like paying for placements or internships. So some are paid and some are not paid. And I work with, I would contact organizations that have established internships or placements already. Some of them are paid and some of them are not paid. I also carve out a lot of new opportunities with organizations that have never taken in a student before, or an intern or a placement student, right? And sometimes there is a budget, sometimes there is no budget. I'll give you a success story, which is quite exceptional, but I think I try to encourage people to approach it this way. I arrange a student on informational interview. An informational interview is when you actually go into an organization to learn about the organization and the industry. What you can't do is ask for the job. It's not about that. And I arranged the informational interview. She went in once, they liked her, they wanted to see her again. She went in the second time, and they made her a job offer, like a full job offer, which doubles as a placement. So in the best case scenario, that can happen, right? So that I encourage people to just, when you go in, bring everything you have, treat everything like a real job interview, really. Bring everything you have, and kind of, if there's an opportunity, then let the employer determine what the opportunity is. But don't determine beforehand what this may or may not be. If it's a non-paid work placement, don't devalue it. You never know what's gonna happen. The student went in, there was no employment opportunity. They didn't have anything in mind, but they saw her value. They didn't want to lose her to the industry. They created something for her. So never diminish opportunities. Never diminish opportunities. You never know what's going to happen.
Definitely. And what about the fee structure? As in, the way I know about it is that the fee typically is lesser than maybe a lot of other university programs. So there are two questions within this. One, what about the fee structure? Is there a reimbursement that one can look forward to when applying for these bridging programs? And two, comparing it with university courses, do employers value bridging programs as much as they value university courses?
So I think,
Sheila, go ahead.
Okay, we both don't want to answer this question. So the fee structures of all bridging programs are unique. So you really do need to do that research and ask good question. I can honestly only speak about our two programs because I see a wide range of differences when I look at other bridging programs. So typically they are affordable. Typically cost is a focus, and the organization is not trying to be for profit and make money. We're just trying to get people to oftentimes pay for special certifications and things like that. So, you know, it can range, certainly. So, you know, for example, for our program, there's 2 streams, and one stream is $1,000 and it's about 10 months. The other stream is about 14 months and it's about $3,000 because there's enhanced curriculum and components that just are, and special certifications. So, and then Daniel could say the cost of the media and communications one. So in terms of cost, you know, there isn't, you know, you can't do, typically there's not a refund involved, but you can often get loans. So there are micro, what is it called, Daniel?
Microloans.
Yeah, microloans for specifically for newcomers, designed with low credit, and the ability to pay it back effectively are a strong possibility. And a lot of our students do access those loans, but we work very hard to make sure our programs are affordable. It's something that's on our minds all of the time. Our pay structure is usually spread out over many, many months. We very rarely expect a student to pay the full amount all at once. And we work really hard to make sure it's affordable, but there is just some costs we can't avoid with special training.
Yeah, for our programs, I'm not sure about BREM, Sheila, but for at least for BEMC, in the province of Ontario where we are, there is a subsidy. It's called Ontario Bridging Program Application Program, and it's a subsidy program, and we encourage applicants to apply, and they will receive the majority of the they will receive the reimbursement for the majority of the cost of the program. Quite a bit, actually. I would say probably like 75 to 80% of the cost of the program will be covered by this subsidy as well. So that's just in the province of Ontario. I know there's viewers out there all over the world, and then, you know, so, but kind of look to see what subsidy programs do exist, because they are available.
Yeah. So you're talking about Ontario. There's a question which is, is there a province that is better than the others when it comes to offering bridging programs? I'm not too sure if we have a definitive answer to something like that, but would you like to give it a go?
Well, with my program, it is the only program I know in the world. There's no other bridging program for media and communications. So I could say we are the best because we're the only ones. And hopefully Beauty can back that up. We created this program because there wasn't anything for professionals in this industry. Media and communication is so specialized, it's so niche, it's so elite, right? But I know their majority of bridging programs are in health sciences and in engineering, those I think legal, maybe those professions. Sheila, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're one of a kind for sure at Mennonite New Life Center in terms of the programs we offer, but I can't speak to other provinces. I think you have to investigate and do those good questions. They certainly exist all over Canada, absolutely. It's something that the government has seen is effective. Bridging programs are successful. That's why there's so many of us, and that's why we exist, because, you know, you'll hear bridging programs, and this is another good question to ask: how successful are your graduates? How many? What's the percentage of graduates that are working after they graduate from your program? It's a good question to ask. And for our bridging programs, the numbers are very high. For the mental health program, you know, it's 80% are working in their field after graduation between 6 to 9 months. It's a great stat. And that's why bridging is beautiful, in my opinion, because it's successful. You know, I'm in the helping profession. I want to see people achieve success. And, you know, bridging has just created a beautiful formula that really, really works.
But given the times right now, you know, when because of coronavirus, we're all at home. And as I understand, the bridging programs that the two of you have mentioned right now are also in-class programs. And everyone within Ontario, I guess, is eligible. So given the present circumstances, are you opening it up to maybe people within other provinces as well? Because there's a question, and possibly the last one that we can take in today's session now, which is about can other participants outside, maybe outside people outside GTA, can they participate in the media and communications bridging program, especially given the circumstance right now?
Yeah, both our programs are Ontario-wide. So for those who live in Toronto and GTA, they need to come physically to our center, which is located in North York, to attend the program. But for those who are outside the GTA, for instance, I'll give you examples. We've had students in Milton, Oshawa, I think Hamilton, Ottawa attend the program, and all our classrooms are equipped with cameras, and they're all Zoom based. So students can log in just like any other students who are physically in the classroom and get the same experience as long as they're residents of Ontario. That is mandatory.
So if the participants right now attending this webinar are enjoying this kind of an interaction, this is pretty much what you can expect online when you're attending these sessions as part of the bridging programs, definitely. So nobody misses out on anything.
Thank goodness for Zoom. It's just created such a seamless interaction with our participants in terms of our delivery. I mean, it's really been seamless. There hasn't been any difficulties at all.
Yes.
And I just want to add that during COVID-19, we are still running our programs. So they will all start as scheduled, and everybody will be online to start with until something changes in the future. So just to put that out there, that our programs are fully running.
Definitely. And one can check out the website, MNLCT website, and find out about the programs. Before we come to, I think we now will be wrapping up. And before that, I'd like to just go about wants to maybe just know from you any last message, tips that you would want to share with participants of the webinar, or people who are now still a little confused about whether or not bridging program is the ideal thing for them, or any anecdotes from your experiences. Maybe we'll just go one round and then we'll have to wrap up.
So I would like to start this. Before getting into any program, whether it is a bridging program or any other program you're getting in, please give your 100% commitment to it, because that makes a lot of difference. So that's one thing I would like to add. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's a two-way commitment, right? Both ends.
Yes.
Yes. Luciana, what about you?
Yeah, I also think that when you move to Canada and you land here as an immigrant, you do have different choices. Unfortunately, many of us, they have to get, for example, survival jobs, and they don't have enough time or conditions to invest in their career. And we see sometimes psychologists, engineers, doctors, dentists that they have to just provide for the family. So the bridge training definitely requests some commitment, and some of them might take time. And but if you want to pursue on your career, I think this is a very important step that you can take. So I think I was lucky, and I feel grateful that I could commit and dedicate my time for placement, for following volunteer work in my field, and to attend all the classes. And I think it gave me the chance of finding a meaningful job in my field, and even getting the registration with the college. So it might sound at the beginning like very challenging to dedicate that time to attend a bridge training, but I would definitely encourage those that are watching us to take this step. Yeah.
What about you, Sheila?
I would just add that bridging programs, particularly in employment agencies and nonprofit agencies, are small. They have a small staff, but I think because of that, you have a really dedicated, focused staff, and you get a lot of one-on-one attention, at least in our 2 bridging programs. And I think that's invaluable and oftentimes not offered in a larger institutional kind of setting. And I think that we can't ignore that. It's part of why I love the program as well, is I get to build connections and real genuine relationships with others. And I just want to say that I think that's part of why bridging is really beautiful, if it's right for you, and for all the other reasons as well.
And lastly, Daniel.
Well, I just want to add that Sheila's program and my program, we're both starting in May, which is in a few weeks. I think there's still opportunities to register. We still have space in our programs as well. So both our programs have, I think, a couple more information sessions for the month of April. So go to our website, the schedule is there, and sign up on Eventbrite and learn about the programs. And furthermore, talk to people who are going through the program right now or completed. Talk to folks like Beauty and Luciana, who are wonderful representatives of what we do, and ask them about their experience. And ask questions, make a list of questions. When you come to the information sessions, let's talk about it. Let's see if it makes sense for you as well. But yeah, we thank you for everyone for watching and listening today and asking great questions. And I guess whatever your pathway is to success to find work, we wish you all the best. And we hope that you consider us as a very viable option in your career journey.
Thank you once again, Daniel, Sheila, Beauty, and Luciana for joining us today and having this discussion about bridging programs, helping our viewers understand that what are the different bridging programs out there, how is it that most bridging programs can help newcomers in their professional journey. And for the viewers, you don't have to worry about all the links that we've discussed here. We'll be sharing them with you in an email post the webinar, which will also talk about the bridging programs, resources, and you will also get a recording within the next 48 hours of today's session. So today's session, again, was brought to you by New Canadians, and you can continue to connect with us through our Café New Canadians series. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can connect with us. We're also on Telegram. Please join us there as well. Interact with us and tag us in your journey. To stay updated about our top stories, you can also subscribe to our monthly newsletter, and that'll make sure that all our important stories end up right there in your inbox every month. And with that, thank you once again to everyone who joined us. Thank you to the participants who've been patient enough, asked all the questions, and we'll try and answer anything that we missed out in the communications that we have with you later. We have another session as part of the series tomorrow, which is about how COVID-19 has impacted the Canadian immigration process. And so you can sign up for it, and please stay connected with us, stay at home, stay safe, and thank you so much for being a part of this journey today. Before you exit, I'd like to remind you there's a quick survey which we have for you, which will help us serve you better the next time. It'll barely take just a minute of your time, and that will tell us how we did. So let's continue doing that. Thank you once again.